to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have the director of a new movie that's coming out soon. It's called Habitat. I have Derek McKay. Derek, how's it going, my friend?
Very well, Travis. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on, my friend. I appreciate it. Now, now, Derek, before we get into your new movie, Habitat, I had the pleasure of watching a movie that you actually written, and that was Clinton Road.
Yeah, Clinton Road. Clinton Road's like my film school. That was really my sink or swim intro to indie filmmaking. A friend of mine set me up with the director producer because I'd written a couple of horror things that he liked, and he was just like, "Hey, I know this guy. You should talk to this director." And ironically, the guy who helped me introduce me, who's now my current writing partner and co-producer, and we own No Brains Productions together. So nice little nice story there that he got me my first real taste of indie film, and it's a horror, and I'm glad you watched it because I know we were coming on talking about Habitat, but really Habitat is more of a sci-fi than a horror, but there are horror elements. But yeah, Clinton Road, a lot of interesting stories about that. So I know you wanted to touch on that a little bit. I'm happy to, because it is an iconic horror in the horror genre. Like, it is meant to be 100% horror. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say, or any questions you have, because
I mean,
yeah.
there were some iconic actors and actresses in that movie. I mean, you had Ice-T was in there. Um,
Yep.
well, Lauren Laverna.
Story.
Yes. And
yeah.
Eric
Lauren,
was
for
there.
sure. Yeah.
And
Roberts makes an appearance.
Yeah. And Lauren Laverna, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name, but she is the final girl in Terrifier 2. She's in that. It's a young, I'm assuming, probably one of her first roles.
She was awesome to work with. She was a lot of fun. I still have friends with her on Facebook. I'll tell you, the main cast of that, because I'm sure you noticed that, it's one of those scenarios where all the big names are in, like, 5 scenes.
Yes.
For 5 minutes.
In the beginning.
Yep. That's very indie film way to go, right? You got to put somebody on the poster, on the cover. Again, this was sort of a learning experience for me, so I took a lot out of what they did in that film. A couple other newcomers that you might not have noticed on the screen was me. I play the Ironworker, the guy with the big beard that kills everyone. That's me.
Oh,
and the little girl is my daughter.
Yes, you tell me your 8-year-old daughter, I believe, was.
Yeah. So she got. It was fun to be able to bring her on, and I tell you, she was a true professional. She did some theater classes and stuff prior, like she was interested in theater, but she was only 8, and brought her up and introduced her to everybody, and she had an absolute blast. But she was a true professional. I was always like checking in. I'm like, Sam, do you need it? And she's like, Daddy, let me do my scene. And I'm like, oh yeah, you betcha. And it was co-directed, and one of the co-directors was oh Jesus, why can't I remember his name? I can see his face right now from 21 Jump Street. Oh my goodness, why can't I remember his name?
Actor?
Yeah, he's an actor. He was on 21 Jump Street with Johnny Depp. Richard Grieco. Richard Grieco was the co-director of Clinton Road.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if he makes an appearance in the YouTube cut. I know that it's been through half a dozen different edits. The original edit has a bunch of, it's more R-rated. There's some nudity and some sex and stuff, and then Richard wanted to do something. He wanted to do a cameo, and he did. Now I don't think it made it into some of the other edits because it really didn't. It was a little clunky. It was sort of a tack on piece that he did at the end. But so I wrote Clinton Road, and it took a little while. About a year I worked with Steve Stanulis on it, and essentially was supposed to be like a campy horror.
Mhm.
Clinton Road, real place in Jersey. I mean, if you're from Jersey or New York, you've heard of Clinton Road anyway. And there's a ton of stories affiliated with it. Um, the iron worker is not a real character, but there's an old foundry there, so there was iron working going on. There was a story of a kid on the with a bite that a friend of his, like, threw him off the bridge, and that's the real. It's not the real. It's the real location of the bridge, but it's a different bridge now. And if you put a coin on the bridge, so there's a bunch of little things that are in the film that come from actual stories. There's a scene where a ranger, park ranger, comes along and tells them to move along, stay on the road. Well, there's, and then he disappears. You're like, what was that all about? Well, there's a real story about that actually happening. Some people went camping, and park ranger said, hey, you shouldn't camp here. And when they came back, their car was gone. And then they went and complained, and people were like, there hasn't been camp rangers in this area for 50 years. In fact, the last one was murdered. And you're like, oh crap, right? So we tried to, fit in a bunch of those little real stories into the film itself. And unfortunately, I don't think the hook plays through, because I thought the hook was brilliant. And the hook is, if you stay on the road, you're fine. Unfortunately, I don't think that plays in the edit. It just, that was the best thing, was like, that was my selling point.
That makes sense now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So all these entities are stuck, and this was all supposed to be. There was a lot of confusion on set, unfortunately. If you've worked in film, you understand. Sometimes just you get a bunch of different opinions. And look, I was the writer and I was on set, but I had nothing to do with direction. I wasn't script supervisor. I was there to rewrite when rewrites needed to be done, because I wanted to offer that as a service. And we did have to rewrite a bunch of stuff because there was some location issues and this and that, and continuity, and people not understanding stuff. And look, you're going to get that in all films. But if you get that, it's like the scariest road in America, and the safest place to be, on the road.
But a hook actually makes sense for. Hoping I'm not giving anything away, but
look, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's on YouTube,
and it's from 4 years ago. It's like 6 years old. So you're not spoiling anything.
The cute Hispanic lady who goes topless. At one point, she has to go to get the boyfriend who's a psychic or a medium or something to get something from his SUV. And I thought to myself, oh, she is definitely clearly not going to make it back. She's going to die. But she survived that because the SUV was on the road.
Right. Yeah, there's a bunch of that where if you get it, and also the ranger that comes along says, stay on the road, stick to the road.
The road. Mm-hmm.
There's many stories on Clinton Road of the phantom truck, and this is what made me think about making it so that the road was a safe place. The phantom truck comes along, and there's many stories about this, and I've driven the road a bunch of times. I don't live there or anything, but when we went to film it, I'm like, yeah, I'm going for a ride on it at night, in the dark, whatever. And it's just a 2-lane road. It's like 10-mile road, goes through rural Jersey. No, it's a pretty road. It's a pretty drive. There's a bunch of hiking and all sorts of stuff to do, and there's houses, and so it's, as much as it is a haunted road, it's just a road in the middle of Jersey, rural Jersey anyway. So I'm thinking, so the story about the phantom truck is that it comes up behind you, or it's heading towards you, and it's like the lights are like, they get blinding the closer they get. But as soon as it's on you, boosh, the lights go, it disappears. There's no truck, right?
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, that's a great way to get people off the road and into the woods. And if these entities, and this is the lowdown, is that, like, the entities that are trapped there, they're souls that are in purgatory, and they've been tricked by evil to make them believe that if they collect enough souls, they can leave purgatory. But they can only manifest themselves on natural soil, like in the woods. If it's man-made, the asphalt, then they can't do anything to you. And there is a bunch of scenes that we struggled with that because we couldn't find a clear, division of a road with asphalt and dirt. And look, there's a bunch of stuff that made it, didn't make it, was understood, wasn't understood. it's neither here nor there by now, but
Mhm.
it was definitely a learning experience.
So on topic, but off topic, I'm going to bring something you said earlier, and this is
Okay.
true about indie horror movies. And I just want to ask you the low down question about it. So a lot of indie horror movies you see that I'm not trying to use someone who I've seen in the movie recently, but let's say Eric Roberts is going to be in this movie,
Yeah.
and you only see him for 5 minutes in the beginning. So how does that work? Does as an indie producer, you contact Eric Roberts and you say, "Hey, I'm going to pay you X amount of money to be in this movie for 5 minutes," or does Eric Roberts say, "I'm only going to be in this movie for 5 minutes"?
Eric Roberts is like the Candyman in all indie films. You just go to the bathroom and you say his name 3 times in a mirror, and poof, there he is. Um, Eric, I don't know how we got a hold of Eric. I know that. Okay, so I mean, uh, I mean, it doesn't matter if I talk about it now or not.
Yeah.
Years ago, anyway. So originally, look, this was supposed to be a true indie, like ultra low budget. That's why I'm in it, because I was like, look, they were complaining they don't have budget for this, that, and the other. I said, I'll come if I can help save some budget. I'll jump in. I'm not an actor, but look, I'm taking a role with no lines.
Hmm.
I have an 8-year-old daughter. She can play a creepy little kid, no problem. She has more acting experience than I do. Now, originally, that whole bar scene that's in there was supposed to take place in an apartment. There's missing a whole opening scene where we give the backstory of the guy and the wife and his up and down and it didn't get shot correctly, therefore they didn't use it in the edit. But that apartment was supposed to be used over and over. We are supposed to, like, hey, if keep the budget low, let's keep the locations low. The bar only came about because we got Eric Robert. Well, no, sorry, because we got Ice-T and Vinny Pastore. How the production company got a hold of them, I'm sure it was just through the casting agent. I'm sure there was some more money that came along, and they said, who can we put in here? So yeah, in the last minute, I was asked to rewrite those scenes to take place in a bar, and I'm like, what? Why would they be in a bar? And they're like, well, because we have these extra characters, and I'm like, what do they have to do with anything? And they're like, nothing. They got to be in the movie because we can. I'm like, okay. And Eric Roberts wasn't in, like, we had no idea he was going to be there until we were shooting. We were in the bar shooting. Ice-T's there. Super nice guy, by the way. Bo Dietl is a funny man. And Vinny Pastore is my absolute favorite. That guy is just absolutely hilarious. Big pussy from Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was 2 days we shot in that bar, and it was an absolute blast. So much fun. But it had really nothing to do with the story, except for I'm like, okay, how do I shoehorn in fucking these people? And so I'm like, Ice-T was the most important, obviously. So we gave him. I'm like, okay, well, Ice-T's going to tell a story about how his auntie used to live over by there, and he had a bad experience. We're like, okay, does it work? Does it matter? Honestly, in these we got to get these characters into the fucking woods and start killing them off. That's the whole point. That's why I know you watched it and you're like, why is 35% of this movie happening in this bar? Well, because that's where 35% of the fucking budget the cast went. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. Look, man, I know I'll probably get a phone call after someone sees this and be like, what's wrong with you?
I was thinking that. I was like, there's a whole back room at a bar, weed smoking scene. I'm like, wow, this spent a lot of time in this bar. I thought it was going to take place in the woods.
Yeah, it just and this was all supposed to be expositional, kind of not expositional, but like so the scene. One of my favorite scenes in that whole movie is between and Erin's in it, or not Erin. What's her name? I forget. You brought her name up earlier. Lauren. Between Lauren and I can't remember the other actress's name. I apologize. In the bathroom, and that's supposed to happen in the kitchen in the apartment. And it's a really cute scene because it really defines these characters. One is like the caring sister, and the other one is like the new girlfriend, and it's the husband, and it's her brother, and it's the boyfriend, and so and she's just like, oh, it's just because he's a fireman, right? And you're just like, yes, you're defining your characters. We wrote it that way, and they appreciated it because they're good actresses. and they wanted to, I got to talk to them on set and stuff. And we didn't shoot that until the second week. We had 3 weeks of shooting. We did that in 15 days, I think. That was a 15-day shoot. Yeah. And half of it was out in rural Jersey in the middle of nowhere, which was fun. It was good.
Yeah. But you said that this movie has no budget. I mean, I'm from watching it, it looks like it has a pretty decent budget.
Okay, so originally when I was hired to write the script, it was supposed to be micro budget, no, but like, 50, 60K. That's what I was told when I originally wrote it. So I think I'm fairly good at it. I'm a writer by trade. That's my bread and butter is writing. And I'm also like my side business, my regular business. I asked them to keep the music down. Could you hear the music?
No, I can't.
Perfect. Good. Okay, so I own I'm in the bar restaurant business for my whole life. That's my bread and butter. So I understand business and I understand writing, and so with that combination, I understand how to write with budget in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I use this as an example all the time. People want to chase a car chase through San Francisco, and I'm like, you can have a foot chase through the woods. Both are chases. If they're both filmed correctly and in context, you can get the same result out of both of them. If it's just a chase you need, and you don't need to spend the $20 million in shutting down downtown San Francisco for a car chase, well, then that's your insurance is going to be $20 million. Like, it's ridiculous, right? So a foot chase through the woods, you can guerrilla that and it costs you nothing. So if you've got it, those are your two extremes. And if you've got to find if your budget falls somewhere in between, well, fine. That's what you do. But so, yeah, at the end of this, yeah, the budget was much more than the 50 or 60K that originally. So when that happened, then it was, then we were allowed to expand a little bit. Unfortunately, some of the there was some of the budget that where I wanted it to go was into the horror.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted, like, look, and I'm sure I'm gonna get if I get flack over. Like, I brought fake blood to set because nobody had blood. And I'm like, one of the makeup artists had a little jar of fake blood. I'm like, no, this is a horror movie. I'm killing people. I want fake blood, man. So I had a recipe, some molasses and food coloring and corn syrup and stuff. And so that's where the fake blood came from. But there wasn't enough of it.
PG-13 movie at first because there was no blood. I was like, oh,
and probably
movie? I was like, there's no blood.
On the YouTube, there probably isn't. Sorry, in my office, there's some people coming through here.
There's absolutely no blood.
I think there's there is a little bit of blood, I believe, if they kept that scene in with the character Bagori, who is what's his name? I forget the actor's name now, but he was in like House on Haunted Hill or Haunted House or something like that. Anyway, where I smash his head in with a hammer. There's supposed to be some blood there, and when I walk away, there's blood dripping off the hammer. But other than that, there was supposed to be like a pike that impales somebody. That doesn't make it in. So every time it was just like, well, how are we going to kill this person? We're like, well, we'll snap their neck. We'll just carry them off into the woods. Well, like, it was just sort of because there was no budget. There was nobody there, for stunts, for any of that kind of stuff. Mind you, there's no stunts really in the film. But it was like, as far as like, when there was no budget, it was when we were in the woods. That's for sure. That bar we shot in was in Manhattan. Beautiful downtown bar that had just closed, apparently.
It was amazing.
It used to be a bank. Oh, it was a cool bar. The back bar full of bottles. So by the end of the shoot, we're all like pouring drinks because, well, I guess you rented the place and no one said anything. So it was a cool bar. There was a handful of things in there, though, like I tried to slip in. And again, nobody knows this stuff, but the name of the bar was supposed to be Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
And Appleton's a rum, right?
And
I thought, no big, we'll just call it Appleton's. And then you're like, well, and the reason I did that was because Ice-T was going to be the bar owner, or is the bar owner. Well, what's Ice-T's most iconic role? Is from New Jack City.
Yep.
Detective Appleton. That's who his name.
Oh,
That's who it is. It's his
that's
name's
good.
Appleton in that, right? And these guys are supposed to be firemen, and he's supposed to be an ex-cop busting, and he busts the guys. I don't know if that's still in it, but he busts them smoking some weed in the bathroom and shit.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah,
was
okay, that's still in there. Yeah. So that was a little bit of an homage. I'm like, look, we got Ice-T. I'm on a nod to
New Jack City.
something New Jack City. Why not, right? And it was something so simple because Appleton, you're not going to make that connection,
Yeah.
right? That's a true Easter egg, right? Nobody's going to make that connection. But that didn't, that went over people's heads, and they were like, nah, it doesn't matter. We don't need that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's Clinton Road in a nutshell. I thought the hook was great, but it doesn't play. You don't know that. It doesn't. It's
hook.
not.
If I knew it was a hook. Yeah.
Yeah. If you knew, and you watch it now. I haven't watched this most recent cut. I sent you the link, but I've watched numerous other cuts or edits because it's been through a handful of different people. But that one, look, did you see the numbers on that? That's moving up to 750,000 views.
Yeah.
That's insane. That film on that first edit, they had a short theatrical run because of the name, right? Because of it had Clinton Road in it, and it had Ice-T on the cover. So yeah, that's my horror.
But it's a nice move that I'm not even saying low. I'm not even saying low budget horror movies do. Low budget movies do in general. They'll have, New York Showdown starring Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis is in the movie for like 5 minutes in the beginning, sitting down, and then you never see him again. It's a good.
Look, it's done over and over. Like, yeah. I think there's even Ice-T is infamous for doing this. He was in a vampire horror movie, a vampire horror that was set in during Prohibition. I can't remember what it's called. It's a micro budget kind of thing, but it's as a period piece. Period pieces aren't cheap, right? There's like gangster cars. These guys are wearing zoot suits. The special effects are campy, but he's in it for a total of like 6 minutes, and he's on the cover starring, and I don't. Is it worth it? I don't know. So I'll tell you, when we went to do Habitat, there's a cameo piece in that film that we're like, look, we can hire somebody, and we considered Alice Cooper because we were shooting in Arizona, and he's out of Phoenix. But he was touring, so it was a little tricky. He was also going to be, we don't know what his price would have been. I know how much Ice-T is. I know how much Eric. So the Eric Roberts thing, yeah, he just showed up.
He showed up.
We were in Manhattan, and I think he heard that there was something going on. He came down, and he knew somebody on set. And then next thing you know, he was in it. Now, if you notice, he's in it, and it's like he plays himself. He's like, I'm Eric Roberts. And you're like, you don't look like. So there wasn't any that was all ad lib. There was some more than enough in you could tell what was kind of ad libbed in those scenes, and the rest were scripted. But we got our point across, and it got us out into the woods, and the kills are mediocre at best, kind of thing. Unfortunately, I wish we had done some unique, interesting kills to carry the horror through it. But
amazing idea. Like, it's an amazing idea for a horror movie. It's just the pieces. I mean, the story that you're telling me sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'll send you the script. It's a great read.
All right. So other thing, I saw your trailer to your new movie, which is a sci-fi horror-ish movie called Habitat. Tell us a little bit about Habitat.
All right. So, having done worked on a couple of different projects with people, Greg Paul's my business partner in No Brains Productions. We talked about it, and we're like, look, we can't do this, play the lottery thing and write script and try to sell them and get picked up and stuff like that. If we're going to do this, we gotta do something of our own. And so we thought, okay, we knew genre wise it was going to be either, micro budget campy horror, And then we had an idea from a short story that my cousin and I wrote a while ago, and she passed away, and I thought, you know what, this would be a great homage to her to do sort of this self-contained sci-fi. And so it started there, and it just grew and grew and grew. It's an interesting project, to say the least. I don't want to give too much away. I'm not allowed to give too much away, but it is a heady, budget conscious sci-fi. It touches on the Anunnaki returning to Earth for their gold. And if you know anything about the Anunnaki and the Sumerian tablets and Zecharia Sitchin, his translation of the tablets tell the story of the 12th planet, which is Nibiru, which is the home planet of the Anunnaki, and they came to Earth because they need gold to put in their atmosphere to protect them from radiation from the sun and other stars. This is the setup to what Habitat is. So Habitat essentially is the Anunnaki have arrived and realized that human beings have they no longer hold gold mining as their top priority, because back when the Anunnaki first showed up, it was just primates and they were mining their own gold, or they were going to have to mine their own gold. So they crossbred themselves with a primate and birthed mankind. Now, you can believe in this or not. This is not science fiction stuff that I've written. This is what I'm using. That is like, watch a Joe Rogan podcast with some of these guys and they talk about this stuff. This is some people really believe this. I'm not going to tell you whether I do or not, but I like it. I like it better than the Adam and Eve story, honestly, right?
That sounds more interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like Joe Rogan has two theories. He's like, I'll go with the Anunnaki people, but he goes, I also like, monkeys ate some mushrooms, and that's where they branched off. Because if we go back, that's what scientists are struggling with. Anthropologists struggle with is like, look, we had all these primates, and then one just branched off, and the brain just went, it got big, right? And you're like, well, how did that was like this giant leap of evolution. How do you explain that? Nobody can. What's nice is you can say, well, a higher being, which there's a ton of evidence we have, like, who built the pyramids? Why were the pyramids built? All these, the tablets and stuff. Now, I'm going way off track of what the movie actually is, but you need to understand this setup.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm only explaining this because there's a lot of people, when I start talking about the Anunnaki, that their face goes kind of blank, and I'm like, okay, just bear with me for a minute. I'll run through who the Anunnaki are. And so they come back and they realize nobody's mining gold, and their offspring, essentially, because we're their offspring, we hold gold in such a high regard. Here's another thing, though. Why do we hold gold in such a high regard? It's shiny. There's lots of things that are shiny. It conducts electricity. Fuck off. Lots of things conduct electricity. So gold actually has very little use. It has no use, quite frankly. Well, it has minimal use, right? But there's other things. So why do we hold it in such a high regard? Well, because the Anunnaki have trained us to mine as much gold as possible, because they're going to come back and take it. That's what we're here for. So this is where Habitat comes in. Look, that all sounds like a great movie to make, but I don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to make that movie. I wish I did. Maybe I'll join Scientology and they'll fund me or something. You never know. Yeah. And so, okay, so they come back, and here's what, we're talking about promotion and stuff like that. Like, how would we promote this story? So the Anunnaki come back. What do they do when they find human beings are more technologically driven now and politically driven than they are driven for the gold, right? Because that's what we were left here to do 15,000 years ago, was mine gold for when the Anunnaki come back. So they're like, well, we could eradicate the humans, but that wouldn't do us any good. Let's use artificial intelligence, but in order to do that, we can't freak out the humans. We got to test our artificial intelligence. So that's what Habitat is. Habitat is a small micro piece of that giant story. And what it is, it's the Anunnaki testing their AI versus human subjects, and they get their human subjects from institutions. Maybe it's jail, maybe it's a psych ward, but they get these volunteers,
Mhm.
and they pit them. Don't pit them. They test them against each other. So it's an anthropological study, but it's, and but it delves really deep into a lot of other things, some political constructs where I'm sure you noticed in the trailer, everyone's got a shaved head and they're all wearing the same jumpsuit. What
Mhm.
that does is it neutralizes gender and power and race and language and everything, right? If you're shaved down to you're not like shaving the head is more symbolic than anything, but essentially being stripped of any of your personal traits essentially just brings you to a human being. You're just now a human being, and you're
Almost like
being.
the military does. I
Pardon
would say,
me.
I would say almost like the military does when you go into basic training.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So militant. Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but yeah, very much so. And then there's some other stuff. Each of the characters are definitely different. Each of them have their own story, um, as far as their own arc, um, of course. But there's also some other stuff that I don't want to really go into too much. But um, every most people have their little quirks, right? And some people might call it mental illness, might call it, spectrum, might call it a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of people that live a normal life having quirks, and
Yes.
each person's quirk can affect their story or their experience when they face an identical scenario against another human being, or let's say an AI. And so that's where it comes down to. And then of course there's something goes wrong. Is it part of the experiment? Isn't it? And that's sort of when it goes into like a Schrodinger's cat kind of thing. Yeah, without giving away too much.
Yeah.
It's an interesting indie micro budget. We call it the budget conscious low budget horror. Not taking anything away from horror. I'm doing a campy horror next year, so don't worry. I'm going low budget horror next year.
Well, I mean, so I have a question. Do you
Sure,
think
shoot.
AIs are already amongst us?
I don't, like that's the thing. Are you asking, are there like humanoid robots around?
I mean,
I think,
is
yeah,
is
they
Mark
have them.
Zuckerberg?
You
I'm about to say,
can
is
buy
Mark Zuckerberg a human being? Is Mark Zuckerberg or what's his name? Elon Musk. Are they human beings?
Whew. Are they lizard people that are from the hollow moon? I mean, I like that stuff too. The moon is. I just watched a whole thing on the moon, and I still love that kind of stuff. I'm not a flat earther, but I love conspiracy theories. A hollow moon and the alien people. I think that's brilliant. So, could there be, maybe not AI, but is there remnants of Anunnaki? And probably, for sure. There's been numerous civilizations that have come and gone on our planet that we'll never know of because they're just buried under a ton of dust. I mean, we know that we've discovered some of that, and now with like LiDAR and stuff, they discover even more. So, is there aliens amongst us? Yeah, why not? Sure. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
as you get to the science of it, I don't think anyone's traveled here. As far as traveling, it takes too long. People don't understand how far things are in space. Like when you talk about a light year, that's one Earth year traveling at the speed of light. A one light year. We're talking millions of light years away. Shit is, and you're like, you can't travel that. We can't travel at the speed of light. Like think about they were just talking about that, not the Discovery, but but we sent off some satellites. There's two of them, not satellites, but they have the golden record on them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been going for 45 years in an increasing speed, and they're just leaving our solar system.
Yeah.
Like, so is there beings from other solar systems halfway across the galaxy who have traveled here and are amongst us? I don't think so. However, I'm sorry, interdimensional travel, I think that's more likely.
Because I don't know about you. Like I've I consider myself an intelligent person, and I've been extremely intelligent people, master's degree, doctorate degrees. I personally have not been around someone who was smarter enough to create the internet, to create a fucking car that drives itself. I have not been around anyone in my life that's smart enough to who came up with the smartphone. Are those people geniuses, or are they? I mean, like, it's like, how can somebody be? I've never met someone who is that smart that has an idea. Like, I have tons of great ideas.
Yeah, I'll make it. You want
Can
to
I
feel
put them
stupid?
into play?
Here's an idea, okay? Within a mile of you right now, within 100 miles of you, wherever you are right now, within 100 miles, do you think there's one human being that could create a light bulb?
Fuck no.
No, a fucking
No.
light bulb, bro. We're not
But
talking
what
about
was
flying
that?
cars or internet or nothing like that. A fucking light bulb. So everything disappears. We got no electricity, no running water, no gas, no cars, no nothing, right?
And the people I'm saying fuck no about have went through
You want to
years
watch?
of college
You want to
and they
watch
still can't do it.
population dip? Population would in a month you'd have a third of the population left on Earth, maybe a third. People just starve, die. No drugs? Are you kidding me? The elderly would just die. I mean, I know I mean that's a harsh thing to say, but there's a lot of people that without their heart medication they don't live out the month. Diabetics without their insulin, with a lot of people, cancer people without their radiation treatment or whatever, or some of the other stuff. You're like that's a third of the population right. So is it aliens? Maybe people are traveling through dimensions and teaching us, giving us little pieces of this and that.
Because I'm telling
I'll
you,
take
I
it.
I have not met anybody who's as smart as Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or what's his name, the guy who did Apple, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. I
Yeah.
have never came across, and I've came across smart individuals that I haven't even came across people who can come up with this cures to AIDS and stuff and cancer. I have not. I've met smart
Yeah.
scientists, doctors, and so forth, but they're not that smart.
Look, my father has a PhD in organic chemistry, so he's like one of the smartest people I know. And he and I sit down. I mean, he's a little older now, but we sit down and talk about this kind of stuff, like the Anunnaki and the wrap brain around. Personal PhD, and it's mind-boggling that you're right. How do you come up with this stuff? It's got a team of people. I think they use computers to do a lot of thinking for them nowadays, but you got it. Somebody who's from the computer, right? Someone's got to program it to ask the right questions and come up with the right answers. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's how did we get here from fake blood and a horror? I thought we were
I have no idea, because I mean I've met actual medical doctors who are outside of the hospital are complete idiots. So I mean I've met actual medical professionals who are complete idiots outside. So I'm like, ugh. But so that's enough. Anyway, let's go back to heart.
Yeah, we can go on forever on idiots. Yeah,
I think Elon Musk is an alien. I really do. Dude, I don't know about Mark Zuckerberg, but Elon Musk is definitely some kind of alien or AI something.
don't go by a little bit, right? So he's got some. He's also where's he from? He's from like Austria, not Austria, but like Finland.
No,
so
he's
South African. Yeah,
South
he's yeah. So his accent right there. I mean, I'm not saying people from South Africa they have bizarre. I mean, they have an accent. It is what it is, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a weird kind of a crazy cat, but I think it's you can trade in your social. Imagine what we could do if we didn't spend any time on the internet. You know how much you would accomplish? if you didn't waste your time watching movies, and I'm not saying it's a waste of time, it is what we love to do.
Yeah.
But if you focus that energy on sculpting, you'd be one of the world's best sculptors. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you're the shittiest sculptor now, if you dedicated, you get up in the morning and by the time you go to bed, all you're doing is chipping rock. You'd be pretty darn good at it after 5 years alone. Imagine your whole life, 45 years,
Yeah.
12 hours a day. You'd be spectacular, but you'd have no friends.
None.
You may not know even how to put together a sandwich, but you'd be a hell of a sculptor.
Yep.
So it's I think maybe there's a trade in there, there's a trade-off. There's also theories about how some of these older civilizations, there's one example in eastern Mexico where they're like, what happened to these people? There was this race of people and they just disappeared. This is pre-Hispanic conquistadors and stuff. So they're like, where did these people? That was
Hey, Derek, I lost you, bud.
died. Here's guys that were able to design and build pyramids and telling people how to do it. And the people doing it were strong enough to do it, but not smart enough to come up with how to do it. So, but a drought comes, and guess what? The guys who are paying these other guys to do stuff, their money means nothing anymore. Their power means nothing anymore. But they're also not as physically fit as these other guys, and they can't carry themselves out of the jungle. You're like, I'll give you all the gold I have to carry me out of here. And you go, fuck gold, man. I want water.
Exactly.
You don't have water? You're on your own, son. And so you think about that, you're like, that has got to have happened to more than just a couple civilizations throughout time. So, I mean, like the question of, how did they build the inside of the pyramids without fire? Because there's no carbon deposit in there. It's without light. It's pitch black in most of those chambers, and they're built like perfect, right? And they're painted and whatever. You're like, well, how did they see in here? So people, the speculation is that they did have lights, but you're like, well, where's the cables? Where's the light bulbs? And they're like, maybe it wasn't that kind of light. Maybe it was incandescent. Maybe it was just a different type. But that technology was lost because something happened. The smart people died off because the strong people bred. The smart people got bred out. Look, I don't. This is a bad one, but so I live in Mexico, okay, and we joke about this, right? There's sometimes the quality of what you get in construction and stuff like that is mediocre, right? And you're like, hold on a second, aren't these people the descendants that built these fucking pyramids? Like, but now you can't frame a square room or tile a square floor correctly. And I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm just saying that you find a general contractor here or even in the States, and you're like,
yep.
But those are Europeans, right? So those are descendants of Europeans. I'm talking about the descendants in Mexico of the Mayan and the Aztecs. They built these pyramids over 2,500 years ago, and today on the spring and fall equinox, a shadow slithers down at Chichen Itza in a snake. And you're like, get the fuck out of here! How did they? That was 2,500 years ago, man. They didn't have levels. They didn't have, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have laser technology. It's amazing that they were able to accomplish this. And 10,000 years before that, people were building pyramids identical to that on the other side of the world. Explain that. Like, they weren't communicating. They didn't know each other. Like, that's for a whole nother.
And in the year 2023, a contractor who has cranes and everything can't keep a building from falling over.
Yeah. Earthquakes aren't knocking down these pyramids. Why not? Well, they were all built. You're like, and why aren't we building them now? Like, it's crazy. Now, I mean, there's some of them are falling apart, obviously, over time and stuff. But yeah, you look at, like, there's so many questions that are never going to be answered. You can
No.
speculate, but we will never. And I have another business partner in my bar here, and he loves this kind of stuff, and we talk about it all the time. It was a guy that was just walking by, and he like, it drives him crazy that he's like, don't you want to know? And I'm like, we'll never know. That happened. It happened so long ago. The people that know the truth, they're like generationally dead. They're like, their descendants don't even exist anymore. So like that doesn't, you'll never know. You'll never know exactly how the pyramids were done until like the Anunnaki show up and be like, we fucking built them. You're like, oh, that makes sense. You guys and your spaceship, right? It's like, you're like, okay, now I'll believe you. But until that day, like, you can listen, like archaeologists and all these people, they can tell you whatever they want, but it's all speculation. It's nobody will know for sure, and there's always going to be arguments. But yeah, so
I mean, I would say it even scares me when I drive over a big bridge. I'm like,
yeah,
a bunch of Americans put this bridge together. I don't know why I feel so safe driving over this bridge.
Yeah, but it was Americans in the 50s that built it.
That is true.
And those guys built shit to last. They understood. It was not made out of plastic. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, as humans, we've really, brains have gotten bigger, but our ideas haven't gotten, like, yeah, no. Things were built better back in, you say they were built, fridges were built better back in the day. Well, what about freaking structures? Like we were talking about pyramids, like there's no earthquakes bringing those things down. Pretty crazy. No.
So Derek, do we have a potential release date for a Habitat up in here?
We have a premiere. We're doing a premiere in Prescott on the 26th of October, which is almost a year to the date that we finished shooting.
Oh wow!
That was that one we did. We did it in October of last year, and we had we scheduled 15 days to do it, and we shot out in 14. We had over 700 setups, and we did almost 50 some odd setups in one day, and without rushing either. We never had more than 10 takes. I think 9 was the most takes we did for any one shot, but it was all because we were really organized, right? We had a single location. We lit the whole thing, so we didn't have to move lights. We shot the whole thing in a warehouse. We built our own set. So, that's where the bulk of the budget went, obviously, was into building the set. And, but yeah, it was, almost a year to the date. So yeah, Prescott, Arizona at the Elks Theater. It's a 500-seat theater. So if anyone wants to come and check it out, they're welcome to, you want to come? You're in Jersey, aren't you?
Baltimore.
Oh yeah, you're on the other side. You're East Coast. Yeah. But yeah, hey man, you're out and about in the Prescott area. You're more than welcome to come by.
Most definitely.
And speaking of horror, it's funny. We're hoping to shoot something while I'm there. I don't live in Prescott. In fact, I don't even live in the States. So I'm going up for the premiere, but I'll be there for a week, and we're already trying to plan. We're going to be shooting, hopefully, fingers crossed, if everything goes smoothly. We have a location set up. We're going to be shooting a horror themed reality game show.
Whoa.
Yeah, it'll be a pilot. We're gonna do 4 episodes over 2 days. So I don't want to give too much of it away, because that's kind of that's the hook in it, is that the contestants have no idea what it is until they're there. And so I'm not even going to tell you what the name of it is, because that'll give away too much of it. But it's got a horror theme to it. It's about scaring people. It's about invoking fear. Like, it's about capturing true fear on camera.
Like
you can do that when people aren't expecting it. It's unscripted. Well, scripted on our side.
Yeah.
Like, you're setting up. So.
That's awesome, man. So,
and then we have. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just, following that up. Probably in the following year, we will be filming. We're already looking at some locations and some cast for it's a low budget campy throwback horror slasher called Slash of 96.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So class of '96/96. So it's the setup is pretty simple. A kid was bullied in high school, and at a reunion, he sets up. He brings back all the people that bullied him and kills them. So really interesting. Lots of like full on slasher, campy '80s slasher flick.
Nice. So, where can everyone find you?
Find me like what like
At,
to hunt me down?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. um, well, I'm on social media, Instagram Derek Ross McKay, Facebook same thing Derek McKay. Our YouTube channel is that has our trailer. Habitat's trailer is it's doing really well. I think we've got over
Yeah.
12,000 views on it now, and it's only been out for less than a month. So we're happy about that, and that's all organic. We haven't been able to, it's not on any, it's on one other channel, I think Brit Trailers or something like that. I think
Okay.
that's it's got trailers. But yeah, there's only a couple places you can find our trailer, and that's on No Brains Productions, and Brains with a Z, because well, we're not too bright. That's that we like the name of that. We're like, anybody that sends us a check and puts No Brains Productions on it and spells Brains with a Z says more about them than it does us.
Now, do you still get a residual check on Clinton Road? Because I'll plug that too if you want me to.
I do not. No, I think I made a deal in the beginning of that for some back end, and I knew it would never happen. No, I think the owners of that film sold it years ago, and it's gone through a handful of different, because this is like the 4th YouTube channel it's been on.
Wow.
And so it's well over 1 million views for sure, because I think this one's only been up for 6 months. 6 months, they've got 750,000 views on it, which is really impressive. Well, it's a free movie on YouTube, so I mean, you got to sit through some commercials and stuff. But before that, it was on a totally different channel, and before that, it was on a different channel, and before that, it was on I believe the owner of it had it up on like Amazon Prime for $6.99 or $10.99 or whatever it was, and then now it's all available on YouTube for free. So yeah, looking forward to the Habitat.
Yes.
I look, as soon as I would have sent you a copy, but I gotta clear everything through legal right now. As much as it is a low budget project, my partner and I, we own it. We have, we owe some people a little bit of money here and there, but essentially it's all on us. So we really can't afford to have it, leak or get out there or whatever. And not that we think that, it's going to end up on Pirate Bay and nobody's going to buy it. It's an interesting film that I'm sure is going to provoke a lot of questions. I'm sure we're going to get crucified for a bunch of shit because it's maybe inaccurate in some respects or doesn't follow certain thought process, whatever it is. It's an interesting. Yeah. Oh, for sure. The people that we had it edited through a company out of LA, we spent some money there. We wanted to make sure that we edited it properly. And the guys that were editing it, I went out there and did some edit with them, and they were just like, this is great. Like, he goes, I was a little worried about it. And then I was talking to one guy, and he's like, this is really brilliant. He goes, but you got a small market of brilliant people out there that are going to get it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, shit. He goes, yeah, and even when we were filming it, we brought in some people, and they were just like, I only came on this project because, people that were out of our budget that said they would do it for us because they read the script and they're just like, I wanted to see how you were going to do this. Like, it's ambitious. And I directed, so I was just like, well, I don't have a choice. It is what it is, right? We're going to get it. We're going to get what we need. Am I going to get what I want? Probably not, but I'm going to get what I need. And that's the most important thing, is that by the end of, especially in a budget conscious project, you get what you need because you got to finish it. The finish line is where you need to be. If you've got to fix it later, you fix it later. But if there's no money, there's no money. So you better get in the can what you can and then work from there. So yeah, it was like, some guys are like, there might have been a shadow here or there. You're like, all right, let's look at it real quick. But if we don't have to shoot it, I'm not gonna. And that's sometimes you just got to do that and make sure by the end of the day you've got what you were setting out to get, because if not, there's no going back. When the budget is that tight, there's no going back. Get it
Yeah.
now.
Well, I would love to have you back on when you want to. After I see the movie, because I definitely want to see Habitat. I'd love to have back on and talk about it, because I feel like I can talk to you for about a half an hour about the movie. So I definitely have and I also want to talk to you about this video game.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, yeah, this reality game show with a horror, when you're able to talk about it as well.
Yeah, I think after you saw it, we would have a totally different conversation.
Yes. And I'm interested in that conversation. I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm definitely interested in it. Okay, so listen, I'd like to thank you for coming on, my friend. It's been an absolute.
Well, I mean, I'll stay in touch with you. We'll talk a little bit about it off cam.
Yes.
But because it's a really interesting project. But for
You're breaking up, buddy. Hey, Derek.
And shows demographic. It's not horror for horror, but some horror in it. So I think you got it. Yeah.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a little bit of bad signal here.
Okay. All right, there we go. All right. You were saying? I'm sorry. Let's put it back. All right.
No, that's fine. I was just saying that I'm looking forward to getting you a copy of Habitat to watch, and then we could have a totally different conversation afterwards about it. I mean, we'll have to be careful not to spoil it, but I mean,
yes,
it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about it. And for sure the game show thing, like I said, I'll stay in touch with you. I think you'd get a real kick out of it. It's right up your alley. So
yeah, I'm definitely gonna enjoy it. All right. Well, cool. Derek, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. And everybody, look forward for Habitat coming out soon. And please follow Derek on social media. His service just cut out. But Derek, thank you, my friend. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. See you guys next time. Take care.